Finally, Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail has released its first major content patch, Crossroads. Mix of new stuff, admittedly it's getting formulaic, new dungeon, raid, new story stuff. I'll talk about all the little bits and the patch as a whole later in the video. For now I want to focus on my favourite part.
Give in to the darkness of oblivion.
While Dawntrail's had a bit of a mixed reception so far, I've still been looking forward to this patch for a while, because it includes a new raid where we return to Final Fantasy XI.
Allow me to show you the depths of my hatred and your folly!
I was addicted to Final Fantasy XI, my first real MMORPG, so this new Echoes of Vana'diel raid is very nostalgic for me. Okay, getting into Echoes of Vana'diel. We return to Lower Jeuno, which is awesome. Jeuno is kind of the main city in Final Fantasy XI, and reaching Jeuno is one of your first big accomplishments. I think Jeuno looks amazing with modern visuals. If you put them side by side, the new version of Jeuno is slightly different, with more assets and detail on the sides. But it still feels faithful and feels like what I remember Jeuno to be. The first pack of monsters has these goblin replica statues. These might just look like generic enemies, but I was happy to see these because these are from Dynamis. Dynamis used to be these gigantic raids, and we'd have squadrons of black mages nuke these statues. In a previous video, I tried to predict what the bosses would be. I never would have guessed Prishe would be a boss.
How about we start with a big fat knuckle sandwich?
She's a goodie and kind of the main story character of the Chains of Promethea expansion pack, so I was not expecting to fight her.
Ouch, that was a good one.
After that, we get teleported to the Boyahda tree, and it was a nice surprise to see Aquarius. This was a notorious monster that would spawn here. It used to drop an extremely valuable cloth material, at least I think so. I can't remember because the material was eventually removed. There was one time I managed to find Aquarius, but I couldn't kill it by myself, so I had to hold it off until my guild arrived to help. It was intense trying not to die, and it's one of the things I remember.
On your guard. I sense something up ahead. Something big.
While Fafnir is a worm I never got to fight in 11, usually a big guild had a monopoly on him. But this was a cool fight, there's no way they could do these crazy mechanics in 11. Next you get teleported to Ru'Aun Gardens, or as 11 players usually refer to it, Sky. And got to admit, this place looks amazing in 14. In the original, everywhere you see, you could reach, but just a tiny segment of Sky to explore here in this raid.
There's something about that big tower.
I love this zone, I used to chill here, I used to solo these pot-like enemies with my summoner for XP, sometimes I'd team up with Beastmasters, and I'd even raid here. It was awesome. I think it's mental to put so much time into making this just for a tiny segment of this raid. I hope we return here. Or imagine new endgame content like Eureka or Diadem set in Sky. I'd love that.
5 of them? This should be interesting.
Ark Angels were one of my most requested things and really happy they return, and they make for quite a unique raid boss in 14, I like it. In 11 we've got this really epic cinematic introduction. We don't get that here, but instead the Ark Angels voice their lines throughout the battle.
You shall be burned by the rage that controls you.
Pretty cool, and they'd use some of the weapon skills from 11. Chaotic fight as it should be, but I was surprised we fought these guys before the final boss. Almost as surprised as I was for the segue. If you're enjoying this, consider subbing to Peter Bytes or liking the video for more content like this. Cover lots of RPGs. You might like my Final Fantasy series where I'm replaying them all and ranking them against each other as I go. Thank you.
The audacity.
Next we go straight into the Shadow Lord's throne room. Shadow Lord, definitely the #1 thing I wanted from an 11 raid. Pretty awesome fight. Love how he rises out of his coffin, just like in the original. It's so nostalgic getting to hear the Shadow Lord and Dynamis music again. Reminds me of raiding Dynamis at 3 AM because there was next to no European guilds, so I'd have to raid at stupid times with Americans, and then I'd be trying not to fall asleep at high school the next day.
Give in to the darkness of oblivion.
Not so keen on his voice acting. I think he would have suited a deeper voice, at least while his character is in his Shadow Lord form.
Allow me to show you the depths of my hatred and your folly!
I predicted he'd have a phase 2 where he'd go full power and become darker just like he does in the original story, or how he is in Dynamis by default. Instead, he puts on armor like he does in the Wings of the Goddess expansion. This is much later on in Final Fantasy XI's lifespan, where we go back in time and fight him again. Criticisms: I think it would have been awesome if Zaid was here for the Shadow Lord fight. He's a badass Dark Knight and story character that works with us. I wanted this to go like 11 where we don't actually defeat the Shadow Lord, but with Zaid's help we turn the Shadow Lord onto our side and end up fighting off the Ark Angels. The story was a lot more epic in 11, but this raid is more of a nostalgic window into the past. I like that after the raid you can then access Lower Jeuno as a little hub. I wish it was a proper functional little city with auction houses, etc. Then I'd just stay here all the time. So there's a few other new features with this patch. The story continues with what feels like an epilogue to the main story of Dawntrail, where we witness Queen Sphène's funeral.
We thrived because Queen Sphène brought us together.
And we try to uncover the identity of Gulol Jar's mother, which involves a dungeon that's almost like going through a Resident Evil laboratory. In terms of visuals and themes, I quite liked the new dungeon. And you finish up protecting some cattle from a rampaging dinosaur. Not huge developments with the story so far, but we end on a cliffhanger. We'll have to see where this goes next. New Beastmen daily quests that are filler busywork and mindless content. I keep forgetting that they're called Allied Society quests now. I think Beastmen Dailies has a much better ring to it. New PvP season or series. I've been grinding that just as a way to farm tomes. I've been doing Unreal Biocore, a little disappointed to find out that the Unreal boss has exactly the same mechanics as the original extreme version of the boss. I am hopeful to progress onto the hard mode of Sphène's Burden, but there's no completely new trial this patch. And a lot of features that were advertised as part of this 7.1 patch trailer are not here. Turns out a lot of content is postponed till 7.11, 7.15 and 7.16, and I think that sucks. There's very little to do as it is.
It's fine.
I think Dawntrail needs some kind of new system, like some relics to farm, new Palace of the Dead or Eureka. I would get addicted to something like that. A new Eureka in Sky would be amazing. I feel like there's not tons to do at the moment. So while I love the Echoes of Vana'diel, I've got to admit the rest of the patch feels a little bit underwhelming. I feel like content patches are becoming smaller and more formulaic over time. I remember back in A Realm Reborn, in every patch you get a raid, as well as multiple dungeons, a completely new trial, and completely new systems like frontlines, housing, and even core new jobs like Ninja as a patch. This content patch feels tiny in comparison. I'm going to stick at Dawntrail and see what future content patches hold. Can't wait for the next part of the Final Fantasy XI raid. Alright, peace for now.